Jamaica is in the process of adjusting its economy by cutting spending and increasing exports. But with their sugar industry nearly destroyed by foreign subsidies, Jamaica is struggling to export other products.
It's chiefly women that run the apparel industry of Jamaica and the Caribbean. It was a cultural shock for the Americans because we found most of the men sort of kept asking us, "Are you sure you're the owner?" or "Are you really the owner?" And we said, "I'm the owner." And then they say, "Really, you're the owner?" But in a very sort of, disbelief type of way. But after they started coming to Jamaica, the investors, I think they have learned to appreciate the Caribbean women, that we are a very dynamic force. We are a force to be reckoned with, and that we don't take anything sitting down. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very rough order here.
Paulette Roden has been running her own manufacturing company for 12 years. She employs about 50 people. She is one of about 40 apparel manufacturers trying to sell more on the global market.
They're going to put in the sleeve? Yeah. Okay. Some are and they can go for printing in the printery shortly? Yes, yes. Okay. These have to go with the 5 o'clock shipment? Yes.
Jamaica has been battered by changes in the global economy over the last 2 decades. The country has struggled under the burden of high debt, high unemployment, and the loss of jobs because of changes in the world sugar trade. In the early 1980s, in response to the economic difficulties of many Caribbean nations, the United States launched a comprehensive program to encourage export trade and free enterprise. The new program was called CBI, the Caribbean Basin Initiative.
In Central America and the Caribbean Basin, we are likewise engaged in a partnership for peace, prosperity, and democracy. Final passage of the remaining portions of our Caribbean Basin Initiative, which passed the House last year, is one of this administration's top legislative priorities for 1983.
By the time the CBI passed the Congress, most of its trade concessions to the Caribbean had been removed, under pressure to protect U.S. jobs. What remained in U.S. law was something called 807.
When 807 started, the famous saying was export or die. So we were asked to do 807. It was a bit of a shock, culturally and industrial-wise, for the manufacturers. We have a deadline to meet, for 5 o'clock this evening. Will we make it?
The 807 law encourages the manufacture of clothing that's designed, spun, woven, and cut in the United States, and then sewn in Jamaica and shipped back. The system works to use what Jamaica has plenty of, cheap labor, while keeping the higher profit steps in the U.S.
And they're coming out okay? Yes. One day we find that cash is short, raw materials are short, everything, and then somebody says, "Hey, you have got to contract your skills out to America." All these ideas evolved, and the manufacturers became very upset. But there was no alternative, because we were going through a very, very bad economic patch, and we had to do this to survive.
The authors of the Caribbean Basin Initiative had hoped that business people like Paulette Roden would play a key role in the overall growth of the Caribbean economy. But 807 makes Jamaica just an assembly point and discourages greater investment in Jamaica's textile and apparel industries. More goods labeled "sewn in Jamaica" are being sold in the United States these days. But that hasn't meant a big change here. In spite of efforts to help business people in Jamaica, it remains difficult for small companies to prosper.
807 is really just keeping your factory going, meeting your basic overhead costs. We're a bit wiser today, and this is why maybe you'll find in Jamaica there are lots of factories, just their doors are closed. Many of them, the banks have taken them over and just put away all the machines in storage. And you have others who are open, just holding on, as I say all the time, by the enamel of their teeth.
Protecting the U.S. textile industry from manufacturers like Paulette Roden has its price. Saving one $16,000 a year job costs the country many times that in higher prices. The cost to the country of protection for the textile industry is $18 million a year. What's harder to measure is the cost to the world.
We feel that the Caribbean, as you know, it's at a crossroads now with the Americans in their bilateral agreements and with our progress of working for the U.S. and for all the problems we've been having in the apparel industry in Jamaica. We find that sometimes you feel like you just throw in the towel and forget about the industry. But then the next day you come back and you say, I've got to try again, and it's for the good, it's for my children, it's for the next generation, because we must have production in our country.